Hello. Make this quick video. I always say that, but so you come in, hit like and hit share. This really will be a straight to the point video because I don't have all the reference material that I want to have and have all of my scriptures in text. It's a very warm but humid day in Mississippi, and as a result, you see my hair, but it is what it is. And so I just want to make this quick video on the topic of how the church, right, and I put in there as a disclaimer, and the club is maybe keeping you, or can keep you, I'll say it that way, can keep you living paycheck to paycheck, or it can keep you broke. Now, I know a lot of people instantly who probably don't believe in the subject of tithing think that maybe I'm referencing paying tithes or giving to the church automatically, right? But that's not what I'm stating. That's not where I'm coming from. If you follow me for any amount or length of time, you already know that I truly believe in tithing or giving 10%, right? But I don't believe that it's taught correctly in the church, right? I don't believe it's taught correctly in most churches, I'll say it that way. I don't believe that it's taught correctly in most churches. And what I mean by that is, let's break down Malachi chapter 3, for example, one of the most well-known scriptures in the Bible that is preached or taught on the subject of tithe or tithing or giving, your 10% of your income. Well, in Malachi, right, first of all, that chapter is written not only to the people, not only to Israel, right? Not only to the people, but it's also written to the priests as well. Just read Malachi chapter 3. It's to the priests and for the people to tithe, right? It's not just for the people. It was God's chosen people. And if you study tithing before and giving before the book of Malachi, you will see that Abraham, for example, those people that tithe, or even to Melchizedek, they tithe and gave. Even the example or story of Cain and Abel, they tithe and gave because God blessed them, and they wanted to show their appreciation, their gratitude, right, their heart, and then bless God in return, right, and then bless God in return. So, okay, got delayed traffic. So, maybe good, maybe bad, I don't know, maybe an accident. And so that's when those people wanted to give their tithes and offering because they wanted to show gratitude. Well, when we flip the script and go to Malachi, right, Malachi is, God is telling the people that if you want my blessings, you're going to have to tithe. Right? It wasn't like that previous. Every other event of tithing and giving, and you have this in the book of Genesis of Cain and Abel, it was one that was given with the gratitude. That was the setup for Malachi, and the other one that was not giving out of the heart or was not trying to give their best, right? And which God in return. So in Malachi, when you really break that down, you have to look at the Bible in agricultural terms, meaning that these people were farmers. They farmed land, right? And God pretty much told the priests and the people, right, if you don't take care of my Levites, in this temple or storehouse was just a place where they stored the food for the workers in the temple. right? And so tithing then was agricultural terms. And he said, listen, if you don't take care, if you don't bring your agriculture, your crops, your corn, your oil, your wine, right, to my house, to my storehouse, so there can be meat in my house, then I'm going to cut off my blessing from you. He said one blessing, right? If you look in, God, I wish I don't have my notes, so I don't want to say anything wrong. But I don't know if it's Numbers chapter 11 or Deuteronomy chapter 11. But anyway, it's one of those. I do know. I'm just saying this right on top of my head. His blessing to the people, and I think it was Numbers chapter 11, was the early rain, the latter rain, and the former rain, and the late rain, right? Meaning that he rained on their crops to produce in a more abundance and a greater grade of produce. So that meant that those people tithed, right? But they also had to farm the land and do the work. They had to give God something to bless. They had to give God something to rain upon. They had to tilt the ground. My grandparents were farmers, right? And so one of their methods is to protect their crop and to produce good produce was they would put a scarecrow in the field, and it was supposed to do exactly what it's called, scarecrow. Scare away the birds and that will come and eat the seed and come and pick it and damage the crop, right? And so God said that if you all would start tithing, Israel, you are a disobedient group of people. But if you return, see, the people before that, they tithe out of their love and appreciation for God, for the blessing. And Malachi, he's saying, I'm not going to bless you if you don't tithe. And this is how he was cutting off the blessing. That's why that scripture say, if you open up I will open up the windows of heaven. God shut down the rain. He said, I won't let it rain on your crops. I'll let the devourer come and eat your crops. I'll let the caterpillars, the cankerworm, the palmer worms, whatever type of worms that eat crops. He said, I'll let them come and I'll let them devour your crops. So you want the very thing that you're trying to withhold from me and my temple and for the work of the kingdom, then I'm going to devour that. I'm going to allow that to be devoured. But if you tithe, right, I'm going to, and I think my connection may be coming in and out. He said, if you tithe, if you give, right, I will open up the windows of heaven. I will pour out that rain on your crops, and you'll have abundance of crop. And if you listen and obey my voice, and I'll protect your things. And so a lot of times when you hear preachers preaching on the topic that people that don't tithe, they have maintenance problems, their vehicles break down, their HVAC unit in their home stop working, and they have to pay out thousands for maintenance or some unexpected bills. That's the viewpoint or perspective that they are saying, because now you don't have God's covering or blessings or protection to keep what you have, right, to where it's least struggle and wear and tear for you for the upkeep of it, right? And this is just a disclaimer. Just know that when you tithe, that does not eliminate things from breaking down, because God said, hey, I own a cattle on 1,000 hills of mine. I own that. The fullness of the earth. I control. I control that, especially at that time. So he was able to control the devourers of the agriculture, and he's able to control the devourer of your finances. He's able to and although a car or a truck is man-made, right? Even though it's man-made, they're still going to have mechanical issues, but God will give you the abundance of finances, or he'll give you favor where that mechanic may not charge you what he would have charged someone else, or that you find a good mechanic that would charge you less. I have 3 vehicles, and it took me a while to find a good mechanic that had great prices, but now I haven't had any maintenance issues in months. That's the favor of God upon your life when you tithe and when you give. But we have to look at, too, in the Old Testament, that people had to go to these temples to confess to the priests of their sins. And the priests had to take their sins before God. So when in the New Testament, you can boldly go to the throne of grace for yourself. I made a post on my Facebook page that say, if you learn to hear from God, you wouldn't have to pay the pastor to be the middleman. And that is so true. Because in the New Testament, in 2 Corinthians, right, the Apostle Paul tells us to give unto every good work. Unto every good work. That means if you have a pastor who's not tithing and that has bad credit and bad money management, then that's not giving into every good work. That's not giving to every good work. I'm sorry. That is not giving to every good work. Because if that pastor cannot manage their finances in their own household, what makes you think they're going to manage the finances in God's household? In the book of Romans, God said, do business until I come. He says to do business until I come. And a lot of people are volunteering their time in the church. And the church will not give them any gratitude or any compensation, right? It's a law or it's a rule or it's to stop living paycheck to paycheck. And it goes like this. Stop volunteering, or don't you volunteer for what you're learning. You get paid for what you know. That works in the church too. You volunteer for what you're learning or whatever you may be gifted at, and you just want to volunteer, but you get paid for what you know. And a lot of time, a lot of pastors will tell you, you don't have to be in the church every Sunday, right? See, in the Old Testament, the priests, they were in the church daily, day in and day night. They needed a storehouse. If you pass by a church on a Sunday, you will see as many vehicles in a church as you do in a club on Saturday night. And I know most people saying, well, that's a good thing because, we're supposed to win souls. And they are. But if you're struggling financially, because the Bible and God tells us that the people of the world know more about money and finances than the people of the church, you might need to go on the weekend and go to some financial conferences. Good morning, Mr. Brown. Yeah, you may need to spend that Sunday, that weekend, in a financial setting, because the church has become more of a social club now, more than anything. I listened to an interview with Dr. Boyce Watkins and Pastor Jamal Bryant. And Dr. Boyce Watkins said, a lot of argument with the church is that they're not doing anything for the community. And Pastor Jamal Bryant said, you know what, I agree. You are correct. There are a lot of mega churches that's doing minimal impact. He said there are a lot of mega churches that's doing minimal impact. He said, for example, he took over, oh my God, I can't think of, but in Georgia, Bishop Eddie Long's former church, he's now the pastor of that church. Bishop Eddie Long is deceased. And he said, this church is over 300 acres of land. 300 acres of land. Good morning, Kareem. And he said, we're not doing anything as far as land development to help the community. And we're going to implement some things. We're going to implement some affordable housing. We're going to implement some community projects, right, to get out and reach. So I'm just telling you, number one, if you're tithing to a pastor who has bad money management, Bishop Eddie Long, who don't, look, there are over 2,300 scriptures in the Bible, right? And 500 scriptures about faith and prayer. And yet in church, you only hear mostly about Malachi chapter 3, about tithing. There's a whole lot of scriptures about tithing, about money management, about giving and receiving. Even in the New Testament, it states that pastors are supposed to tithe as well. Why? Because it's system, it's the principle of prosperity. You can't continue to give to something that doesn't give out in return and expect an abundance. That's why in the Bible it states that there are 30, 60, and 100-fold returns. 30, 60, 100-fold returns. Because the quality of soil in which you plant and sow in determines the quality of the crop. Now, that's the best way I can explain it. The Bible is an agriculture, biblical, and it just tells you so many times. So if you're tithing into a church that, number one, doesn't believe in prosperity, doesn't believe it should teach you money management. I mean, why shouldn't the church teach money management if it's over 2,000 scriptures in the Bible that teach it? And then I have some pastors that would say, well, you give your money to retail stores and they don't teach you about money management. You give your money to the gas station, they're not called to teach you. Good morning, Tasha. Good morning, hon. The Bible is called to teach you. It's over 2,000 scriptures. Or, I have some pastors that say, you don't know the pain of pastoring. You don't know what, and the pastor is worthy of his labor. I'm not saying that the pastor is not worthy of compensation. But I am saying there are some pastors like Paul who said, you know what? I'm a tent maker. I'm an entrepreneur. I have my own business. I don't need your tithes and your offerings. But I will accept it so that it may benefit you, so that it may abound to your account. So, God tells you that you pick up your cross and follow me. He tells you that this Christian walk or this pastoral walk is not an easy walk. You won't get look at the apostles in the Bible. Look at the abuse that they took, the beatings, the imprisonment, put in jail. It states that in the Bible. But yet, people that offer their time and tent to the church, when they have some financial crisis, you're not teaching them about the money management scriptures in the Bible. But yet you'll get up and preach about how they're asking for money to pay their bills. But get up and teach them what the Bible says about money. And you can't, because you don't know. And you're not operating in it. And, and I tell people, if it was a way that I can look at, to see if that pastor is managing their money right, because I don't want to give my money into dry ground, unfruitful soil. You don't want to go out, in Mississippi, I'm from Mississippi, right? In Mississippi, they have something in northern Mississippi that's called the black soil, or the black belt, and that soil in northern Mississippi is the richest soil that anyone can grow and plant in to produce prosperous crops. The richest soil is called the black soil of Mississippi, northern Mississippi. And that's why it's hard for me to understand. Let me put my hair in a ponytail. It's hard for me to understand how people in the Delta, they are surrounded by this, and they have this land to sow into, and they're living in poverty. And that's because of the mindset, or they don't recognize the resources around them to produce wealth. And maybe it's a mindset thing, maybe it's just a lack of financial education thing, maybe they haven't been taught, but it's a combination of both. So if you say that the church is not supposed to be teaching about money and finances and credit, then you tell me why that there are 200 scriptures in the Bible about it. You tell me why God says the blessings of the Lord will make you rich and add no sorrow. You tell me why you have an issue with prosperity, right? Because I'm going to be honest, the mega preachers like the T.D. Jakes, the Joel Osteen, They're just doing what Romans says to do. They're just doing business until Jesus come back. You know why they are financially free, and they have a financial abundance, is because they are businessmen who are preaching the gospel. Point blank. They are writing books. They market. They advertise. They speak life into people, into congregation. They have programs set up to help people financially to get to. Bishop T.D. Jakes, for example, he had a series out that's called Maximize the Moment. And I think he stopped selling it, maybe because some of disclaimers. And, he took it off the market to sell. I don't think it's available now, but it came out in the 90s. And it was talking about just investing your money, understanding, the stock market, for example, which I'm not a fan of the stock market unless you're trading. I see a lot of posts that says to, now is, buy your kids stocks for Christmas. You will thank me later. Why would anybody buy stocks now? And they are priced. They are performing higher. They're the highest price there'll ever be. If you want to invest in something, you buy low to gain high. So you buy stocks when the stocks crash. And you buy them at the lowest prices, not at the highest peak. You don't want to buy stocks right now. And I really don't like the stock market because it's manipulated. It's controlled by Wall Street. And a lot of people use the scenario Warren Buffett, Good morning, Nana. Warren Buffett invests in stocks. He's a billionaire. Warren Buffett also has the control over those companies that he's investing in. Don't get it twisted. Warren Buffett is able to call Apple, for example, and tell the CEO or the business owner how to run and operate Apple. And Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway is control over that. And he has the insider secrets and insider scoop of what's going on in the company. He knows when to get out and when to get in. So if you want to trade stocks, I highly advise that because of the way the game is set up. And so this is not for the people who are trying to say, I knew paying 10% wasn't a good idea. Let me tell you, if you want to stop living paycheck to paycheck, you don't even have to read the Bible. Just go read some finance books. They will tell you that you need to invest 10% of your income because it's systematic. It's the principles of prosperity. But the Bible says to give it to every good work. And every church and every pastor that you're giving and paying this 10% to may not be a good work. Because again, if a pastor can't manage their money for their household, what makes you think they're managing God's money in his household right? A pastor in Jackson, I watched him live, Pastor Roger Richardson. He talked about John Maxwell, the law of the lid. You can only go as high as your leader is going. If your leader is not financially free and you are giving into that, or your leader is not good at money management and you are giving and sowing into that, then you have to mentorship. You have to invest your time and your finances in somebody who's already above you, that's doing what you're doing, or have reached or broke through the level that you're trying to break through. And that's a lot of the people mindset. They want to give to people who are beneath them or on their level only. And you need to give to people above you. And you need to invest in yourself financially. You need to invest in yourself financially. And if you have a gift that you can be making money off of, then you may have to, on the weekend, stay in and work on your business to better service people, to build your business. There are some people who will volunteer all of their time into a church over the weekend. All of their time. And that's not the way, in the New Testament, they didn't even have church in the temple. They traveled, right, and had churches in homes. People sponsored them in homes. Priscilla in the Bible, the woman that sold purple linen, a rich and wealthy single woman, offered her home for the service of the kingdom. And so when you're telling me, like I say, on Sunday mornings, pass by churches. The biggest financial transaction takes place on Sunday mornings. And anyone that's a millionaire in the church, right? Bishop Jakes, for example, he has a lot of Emmitt Smith, a lot of Dallas Cowboy football players, or a lot of rich people that attend his church. But I can rest assure you, they're not in church every Sunday morning. I'm not against, David said, I was glad when they said unto me, come, let us go into the house of the Lord. I'm not against attending church. But if you have a business and you're working a job, and the only time you have to invest and grow in your business is in the weekend, then you need to offer that quality of service, because that is a principle in the Bible, to do business until he comes. Especially if your church is not reaching in the community, and it's just pretty much used for a social club and social gathering anyway. I made a statement of emphasis that why doesn't the church at least give some type of, they need to improve on their customer service, because why don't they recognize the tithers and the givers and the financial givers in the church? And one pastor come in and went, I don't think a Christian should want to be recognized for giving. Well, you recognize the parking lot attendants workers, the ushers, the daycare workers. You definitely recognize the musicians, which that's biblical too. In Numbers, chapter 11, the people gave in Malachi, not only to support the priests, but the musicians. But why don't you want, because you want to make it appear that you as the pastor are the only ones that's financially given to the community, and that's wrong. That's wrong. Give the people a t-shirt, give them a free sermon CD, give them a dinner with, say, hey, I appreciate you, because that's a gift of the Spirit. Giving is a gift of the Spirit. Not everybody obtain that, whether they're giving their time or their tent. And then I made the point to the pastor, well, if God, when he cured the 10 when he cured the 10 people of lepers, if it was a big thing to God for 1 out of the 10 to come back in the book of Luke and say thank you, then why wouldn't it be a big deal for people that tithe and give to get a thank you from the church? Why would that be any different from a Christian? If a thank you meant that much to God when he cleansed the 10 lepers, if the thank you meant that much to God when that one came back and said, Lord, I thank you, I appreciate you. If it meant that much to God, then why wouldn't a thank you mean that much to a Christian? You can at least thank the people. It's not just you that's giving out to the community. It doesn't have to be a public thank you, right? It can be in private, but just thank the people. Even businesses understand. They even have customer appreciation days and discounts. And that's why the Bible says people of the world know more about money management than people of the church. Even, businesses understand how to thank their customers for their giving. Right? So, hey, go back, watch this replay. I'm not against tithing. I'm just telling you, you need to select where you're tithing to, and you need to go and get some financial education, even if it's on the weekend, workshops, if it's not been taught in your church. And I'm bringing out the point that there are 2,000 scriptures about money and prosperity, and 500 about faith and prayer in the Bible, but yet it's the most under-taught subject in the churches. Hey, I'm signing off. It's Queen of Credit here. You all have a great day.